welcome everyone on this International Coaching Federation webinar hosted at the occasion of International Coaching Week. I am very happy to welcome you today, and we have an exciting session coming up with our CEO, Magdalena Mook, who's going to give you the first preview of the 2021 COVID and the coaching industry research that has been commissioned by PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and International Coaching Federation, ICF. So let me quickly present you Magda. So Magda is she brings experience in fundraising, coaching and consulting, and also association management. She is the CEO and Executive Director of the International Coaching Federation, where she acts as a partner to the ICF's Global Board of Directors. Magda is a trained professional coach and also assistance facilitator. I'm also pleased to welcome today Sandy Stansfield, who is ICF Assistant Director of Member and Industry Research. Sandy has experience in both quantitative and qualitative research. She manages all the member research conducted by ICF and is the project lead for ICF's commission research with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Sandy will be our moderator today, and she will also send all your questions or ask your questions you will be able to share in the chat box with Magda. So we'll open a 15-minute Q&A right after Magda's presentation. Feel free to put all your questions in the chat and ask any questions you may have. Thank you very much for being with us today. And Magda, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good evening, good day, wherever you are. I am super excited that we have an opportunity to present this study exactly at the International Coaching Week. Perfect timing. And it is important as we are hopefully emerging from the pandemic. And this is, as always, ICF being the data-informed organization. It's really good to know what we are facing, what you, our members and coaches, are telling us about your outlook for the future, and clearly what was the actual impact of COVID on the coaching profession. As Isabel said, we have Sandy Stansfield with us, and she is a lead person on this particular study and has been on many others within ICF. So I invite Sandy to join me in sharing some interesting data that I may not be sharing with you if she finds it really important. And then I also invite you, Sandy, to help answer questions if some of them might be coming into the level of specificity that, frankly, without the report in front of me, I may not know on the top of my head immediately. So again, thank you, and thank you, all of you, for being coaches or being interested in coaching, being ICF members, or being maybe interested in being ICF members. And with that, I will share with you a quick PowerPoint presentation. So let me test the technology here. So as Isabel said, this particular study has been commissioned by ICF and conducted in partnership with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And as you see on this title slide, it is a second global snapshot survey. The very first one was conducted in 2019, about mid-year. You may recall that in early 2020, we were releasing the results of the global coaching study, again, done collectively with the PricewaterhouseCoopers. And we realized that the data presented in global coaching study were reflective of the state of the profession right before the pandemic became our reality. So we quite quickly worked with PwC to get that snapshot of the state of the coaching profession in May and June of 2020. As you can imagine, anecdotally, we heard a lot of information around the changes in a coaching profession, and for that matter, any other profession. So we decided earlier this year to repeat that study. So again, working with PwC, we decided to see, is there any change? Are there any shifts that we can observe between mid-year 2020 and 2021? So In our first study, about 10,400 coach practitioners and managers and leaders using coaching skills completed the survey, which was a bit of a surprise and a pleasant one for us, because we're not so sure how many people will be even in a state of mind of answering surveys and questions. And then, you know, we really, what we wanted to accomplish was to see the impact of pandemic on key indicators for coaches and for the profession. And quite frankly, it was also to realize what we, ICF as an organization, can do to support professional coaches as they move forward through their coaching journey and as they were supporting clients through the pandemic. So let us quickly talk about the study findings, and you can see that we will be comparing in part of this presentation the results from 2020 and the results from 2021. Our question about effects of COVID-19 pandemic of coach practitioners, as you can see on this chart, reduced income and reduced working hours were the two mostly quoted impacts. It's not surprising to see the two as first and foremost, because oftentimes reduced working hours, in fact, translates into reduced income. You will also see the changes of career, some, especially for internal coaches, just being redundant and losing jobs, or, you know, people coaching externally, their clients might unnecessarily, unfortunately, had to close their doors, and therefore they lost their contract. But also, what was quite interesting is that good 42% of individuals at that point said there was no impact. So despite some very alarming stories, we found out that for 42% of us, the pandemic did not have a significant impact on their coaching practice. And we were very lucky to have quite a representative sample of respondents to the survey. So as you can see, we could run data for all major regions in the world. And what is, I think, a very lovely picture is that between the early 2021, so right now, the darker color on your screen, and mid-2020, the reduced income reports started slowing down. As you can see, for every region, we have a drop in the reports of the reduced income, and they differ in some areas from significant drop to, well, at least a little percentage points, which in our opinion indicates that the coaching profession is emerging from a certain lull at the beginning of the pandemic and is looking a little bit better at this point. This is an interesting chart, I thought, and we asked about, or actually we ran the statistics on what was the impact of COVID depending on the years of coaching an individual was reporting. And some of you may be surprised that the greatest percentage, that green bar on your chart of reduced income, came from coaches who coached more than 10 years. They also reported the greatest percentage of reduced coaching hours. Well, when we think about it, it's not that surprising, because typically people with more than 10 years of experience tend to work with clients that perhaps their contracts are a little bit more, are larger in terms of income, and therefore even a cancellation or postponement of one large contract may result in a very significant impact on their cash flow and in their revenue. But as you can see, the non-impact on the very far right of the screen, that's pretty good throughout all the experience levels for the coaches, which again is good news, meaning that coaches at every level of their coaching career have opportunity to continue offering their services and being successful in doing that. So overall impact on coaching practice business responsibilities. As you can see, again, the lighter blue, that was earlier in 2020, early 2021, darker blue. We see the significant negative and limited negative, those numbers drop, while the limited positive, significant positive went up. That's, again, good news and pointing into a good trajectory, if you will, for coaching and coaches to continue being successful in their business. Again, looking into the geographic spread, there are some areas of the world where that negative impact seem to be dropping quite significantly. Looked at North America, there is a 14% drop in negative impact. There are some other areas of the world, even in Eastern Europe, being more significantly recorded. But again, the trend overall is very positive. This is something that probably will not surprise you either if you're practicing coach, because from the global coaching study, which we released last year, we were observing that still face-to-face delivery of coaching was a prevalent method in many areas of the world. For some, North America, for example, that was not so much, but for many other areas, still face-to-face was a leading way of delivery of coaching. Naturally, with the pandemic, that changed dramatically. And as you can see on this chart, methods used to coach clients, the in-person dropped by 82%, while audiovisual platforms, that went up very significantly by 83%, almost mimicking or mirroring exactly the drop of in-person. That's another interesting piece between 2019 and 2020. What we noticed, and this is somewhat anecdotal, is that at the beginning of the pandemic, coaches were quite prepared to offer their services in methods other than in person. It was more on the client side that were quite reluctant, either because they simply didn't do it that way before, or and probably it's or because at that point everybody thought that the pandemic will last maybe a couple, 3 months, and then we will be able to get back to the normal, which would be in person. As the organizations and corporations realized that this is a long haul situation, and I think they also realized that coaching was very important at that stage for their leaders and their employees, they were more willing to accept different ways of receiving coaching, hence that significant shift from in-person to audio video platforms. Again, it's a little bit different depending on the regions, but as you can see on this chart, we asked the respondents to the second survey if coaching virtually will create a wider audience of potential coaching clients for the business. The top two bars, so the green and the yellow, represent the agree and strongly agree. So looking at this chart, it is very easy to conclude that a majority of coaches, and it is across the globe, believe that virtual coaching virtually will support the expansion of their businesses because of that greater adaptability to virtual coaching, which may offer opportunities to coach not only people who are in a close proximity, but also clients, frankly, all over the world. And then there was this question about higher profits. As you can see, still it is predominantly a belief of respondents to the survey that coaching virtually will result in higher profits for the business. And this is again somewhat anecdotal, but when we ask coaches why would they say so, they said that basically it is the question of time, because having to meet with the client face-to-face required a travel time, required some additional time not spent coaching to be able to respond to that face-to-face need of a client. Now, with more time being available to coaches, the per hour productive profits may perhaps not be significantly increased. However, that would allow for a greater number of hours or greater number of clients being coached. And then, from every survey we do, we see that coaches are quite a optimistic profession. So when we ask about if the whole coaching will emerge stronger from the pandemic, again, these top two bars, majority of respondents were quite confident that coaching will emerge stronger. We have other studies that indicate that many organizations and individuals really turn to coaching during the pandemic because they noticed how critically important it was for the leaders to adopt a very different kind of leadership, the very different style. That self-awareness was extremely important. Again, we know coaching is one of the best methodologies to help with self-awareness. The theme of resilience, you heard it a million times, was coming up everywhere. And again, we know that coaching is quite a potent methodology for helping with resilient leadership, and so on and so forth. So there are strong indicators because of the impacts of the pandemic that coaching indeed has a very special place in the recovery. And I think that that's part of the reason why respondents to this survey, and please do also remember that leaders and managers using coaching skills responded to this survey, and they even more so may be strongly suggesting that the emergence of coaching will be stronger after the pandemic. I think that all of us experienced it to some extent, that during a pandemic, we had to turn into our own lives. We had to take care of it. It could be kids that need to be schooled from home. It could be, some loved ones there that became sick with COVID. There could be all sorts of working from home for many, for that may not be the preferred way of working. So that question of exploring our own lives became very prevalent. So we heard, and this chart definitely is showing it, that our coaches believe that life vision and enhancement coaching will be more prevalent. And we also, again, anecdotally hear it from our executive coaches that their executive clients, still working within the construct of their executive responsibilities, do turn more into help me be more present, help me deal with my at-home issues, otherwise I cannot be present here as the effective leader. So even in the construct of executive or organizational coaching, that life and vision enhancement topics of coaching may be more significant than they were before. And as you can see, again, throughout the globe, it is a rather strong support for that statement that life vision and enhancement coaching will become more prevalent. We always want to see what the people in a field think about the obstacles for coaching to really grow and expand and be embraced by the clients, by the regions. We ask that question in each and every global coaching studies. We will ask these questions in this study as well. And as you can see, still, untrained individuals who call themselves coaches is just about for everybody but Western Europe the most significant obstacle. And I think that it has a additional importance with the fact that we believe coaching will be sought after, and therefore, as regulated profession, it is a question, would there be more people calling themselves coaches, and therefore creating the potentially a competition to professional coaches, and what kind of work, and this is really on ICF, as much as on everybody else, is how can we make sure that the clients understand that difference and the clients make decisions, informed decisions while engaging professional coach. Not surprisingly, the second largest concern comes from the possibility for global recession. And I think that that's always a huge issue for such professions like coaching, where in the face of global recession, there may be cuts in funding. I'm sure that you read the same reports as I do, that cutting any resources from development, professional development, would be a mistake. Right now, people need it more than ever to again catch that balance that they need for being productive employees. And also just yesterday, I read several reports on the state of global economy, and the picture is not as grim as we might have thought even a couple of months ago. So hopefully that prediction of global recession will not need to be tested and will not impact our coaches in the future. So, I told you that part of the reason why we do these studies is to have a better understanding of how ICF as an organization can support professional coaches. So I will tell you very briefly about some things that our new family organizations are doing in that respect. So for credentials and standards, as you know, in 2019, we released the ICF new set of ICF core competencies. They will become effective in mid-2021. We offered also digital badging. That's important for that question of untrained professionals calling themselves coaches. Digital badge allows ICF credential coaches to be identified immediately on all social media and with the technology, so the clients and prospective clients can be certain that they in fact are carrying the ICF credential. There were also some temporary measures to support renewing of the credentials. There were some extended deadlines and some other provisions. And also what we started seeing more even before the pandemic, but after pandemic seems to be quite a theme, is that the team coaching is becoming more and more prevalent. Therefore, we engage in the research study on development of ICF team coaching competencies, and they have been released very recently as well. For coach training, again, just about everybody started to ease some pain for renewals, either with timelines or with installment payments. Also, during the pandemic, the issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice started being more present, and the coach training family organization created the advisory committee in addition to the overall committee or task force on diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And also there is a task force that is really looking into coach training and making sure that the coach training curricula now truly reflect what's needed for professional coaches to be well prepared to offer their services for ever changing, ever growing, but also ever so demanding marketplace. As the ICF Foundation is concerned, of course, not surprising, there were a lot of pro bono activities delivered by our chapters. There were also some individuals who engage in many pro bono efforts, especially in the local areas, supporting medical personnel, supporting those who were affected by COVID, especially at the beginning in the greatest way. We also expanded our Council of Ambassadors from 4 to 18, so they can be speaking more about the offerings of the foundation. For our Ignite initiative, which is the initiative of the foundation with the chapters to deliver pro bono coaching to not-for-profit organizations to increase the leadership abilities of those not-for-profits. That received the 2020 Silver Award from the American Society of Association Executives, which was a huge success for us. That was the very first ASAE award for ICF and the foundation. And finally, during the pandemic, we created a platform. Perhaps some of you participated in it, ICF Coaches for Good. That was the initiative to offer support for the members of associations in the fields or professions that were the hardest hit by the pandemic. That would be hospitality, that would be spa, that would be tourism. And over 1,000 of ICF coaches signed up for this initiative, and we delivered over 1,500 of pro bono coaching hours to those affected most. That initiative, ICF Coaches for Good, in partnership with SOAR, is continuing as the offering of the foundation. Coaching in organizations, this is a new area for ICF. So we are looking into best practices for coaches in organizations, externals, internals, managers and leaders using coaching skills. And we are also creating more awareness of coaching inside organizations. So when organizations are engaging coaches, back to the professionalism, they are truly engaging those who are best prepared for that service. So professionally trained, perhaps credentialed individuals. For the thought leadership, and again, a new family organization for ICF, but their first convening that they just completed was focusing on future of work. I think that this is so important because coaches have to be almost like a step ahead of their clients. We know that the future of work will be different than what used to be, right? Just about everybody talks about, oh, probably they're going to be more working from home and virtual teams. Probably, well, there will be a need for a different kind of leadership. It will be greater application of technology and perhaps artificial intelligence. So these are all important factors that coaches need to take into consideration, so they are knowledgeable enough that they can lead and help their clients to go through some important influences on the future of work and therefore their own leadership. And of course, professional coaching, there are still available online resources for coaches. This research is supporting us as well. Early on, we put video series on how to continue with virtual coaching best practices, and also supporting communities of practice and virtual events through chapters and through our regional team. And Isabel is with us on this call representing one of our regional teams. So that's just about all I would like to share with you. It took us a little less time even than I thought, but at this point I would like to turn it to you and see if we already have some questions or if you would like to add some questions. You're muted, Sandy.
There we go.
Now you're not.
Now I'm not. We do have some questions already, so I will go through some of these here. The first one was actually, I'm just going to go, if the report will be available. We did put a link in the chat where you can go to download the report. It is not up there yet, but it will be on Thursday. This report is free to anybody. There's no charge for this report, so it will be available on Thursday. One of the first questions is, it had to do with one of the first slides we saw, the impact of COVID pandemic on coach practitioners. And there was some people who said there was no impact. And the question is, does the group who said no impact also include those who said increased income and or hours, new jobs? If they, go ahead, Magda.
No, go ahead, because I
don't know. If they said no impact on that particular question, they weren't able to respond. It was a they weren't able to respond to any of the other choices as a reduced income, reduced hours. There are other questions in the study that we did not go over today about increased income and/or hours. If they said no impact, there could be some increase, yes. Technically.
And that's a really interesting question, if I might add to it, because indeed about 25% of coaches, even in the first study, said that they observed increase in their business. So again, one may think why that happens, and some possibilities is that, and again, this is somewhat anecdotal, many of coaches said that former clients came to them saying, okay, now I really need your help. Or organizations, I'll say they're a little bit more maybe advanced in utilizing coaching, realized early that they really, really need support from coaches. There are some industries that I think fairly quickly realized that that support is crucial, and medical industry being one. In many countries, there were very specific initiatives dedicated exclusively to medical professions, some supported by governmental organizations, some supported by not-for-profit organizations. So it is also possible that if somebody was specializing or already present in that sector, that could have increased the demand for their services.
Another question we have is regarding the methods used to coach. Someone wants to know that SMS and text message were listed. Is that a method to coach clients, or is that a communication channel only used prior to and after coaching? SMS and text.
It's both. Actually, certainly it is in support of scheduling sessions and establishing the agreement. But more and more, what we hear is that coaches use text and an email to support their clients in between sessions. It could be a very simple question being asked. It could be very simple little, do you think this is what I should be doing? Do you have something to offer for this particular conversation? You mentioned at the last session this article. Can you send it to me again? So it's not replacing coaching, but it is a support mechanism throughout the engagement.
We have a question about team coaching.
Okay.
Does team coaching refer to one coach working with a specified team, or does it mean a team of coaches working with a group or an individual?
In generality, it refers to a coach working with a team. It very well could be that there would be a couple of colleagues working with the team. That's not unusual. But the focus in the term team coaching is on the team of clients rather than in a team of coaches. It is really becoming more and more utilized methodology, and personally, I think it's right, because especially in organizations, when there is a team accountability and responsibility for a success, it makes sense that that team truly is being led by a leader, but they all experience the coaching in a way that allows them to be aligned, allows them to frankly disagree and come to a solution that is then supported by the entire team. Looking back, I've been with coaching only for too long, so it may sound almost a little unusually difficult to expect a single person to change the dynamic and to change the culture of the entire team or the entire organization. And we also know it from other research with Human Capital Institute on coaching cultures, is that organizations with strong coaching cultures, in fact, are offering all sorts of types of coaching, and coaching is available to the entire enterprise, not only to certain strata, if you will, within the organization. So team coaching is a bit of an equalizer for availability and access to coaching in organizations.
Question about Latin America and the Caribbean. They had the lowest drop in income being reported. Can you expound on any additional details you may have found or want to share about this region?
She's laughing because because Latin America was a puzzler. Frankly, we were quite surprised by the responses from Latin America, and this is not the first study that we're somewhat surprised by the response. Um, quite frankly, I am not exactly sure why we got this response, and yet I'm reminded by the chief economist at PricewaterhouseCoopers that data is data is data. So we're reporting the data we received. And when you look into some of the economic difficulties in some of the largest countries in Latin America and Caribbean, that is even further puzzling a little bit. But, if we think about coaching in organizations, that is something that we hear is continuing to be a case. And therefore, even if coaches who are coaching individuals outside of organizational setting might report the decrease in income, then the ones working in organizations may be able to sustain that income as much as anybody else. Sandy, any insights on that one?
No, you basically you said everything that I was thinking as well, and what we've talked to PwC about and so forth. It is a little bit puzzling, but I think Magda covered it all. What would you say are the 3 important outcomes conclusions of the research comparison concerning the coaching industry? Maybe trends that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Can I start off with one?
Please, yes, absolutely.
From this study, and it's from this study and from the previous study that we did in June, is that while coaching has been impacted, it's recovering maybe quicker than we all thought it would, and it maybe hasn't been impacted quite to the degree that some other industries have. I think in some ways we've been very fortunate. Not to say it hasn't been, but I think we're recovering quicker than I think a lot of people thought we would.
My other conclusion is that it is maybe even more important than ever to make sure that the qualifications of a coach are being communicated. So, if you don't use digital badge yet, please do. And because, as we said, that now even more people may try to or start calling themselves coaches, and we have to make sure that our clients are engaging where they need to engage and who they need to engage, which points to the need of continuous education on the part of the coaches. One thing that I want to really say, and I can't stress it enough, it's not necessarily outcome of this study, but burnout amongst coaches is a real thing as well. So there is something around well-being and self-care that I think now more than ever coaches need to really be, if nothing else, very aware of. We always are there on the front lines to support our clients. We tell them to self-care, right? And yet we find ourselves 20 hours later still in front of a computer doing something. So let's not forget, and when you look into the new set of competencies, that coaching mindset and well-being is there, very present, and I really think that it's not only important for you to thrive, but it is important to be able to deliver the service that our clients are looking for and deserve. I do think, much to the sharing the optimism of the respondents to the survey, that coaching is emerging stronger. I think that coaching will receive even more press, if you will, and that being from the perspective of organizations talking about impact of coaching, not-for-profits talking about impact of coaching. I think that we're going to emerge from the pandemic with very powerful stories that will only help our claim that coaching is, in fact, changing lives and transforming lives and organizations and systems alike.
We have one question left, but if anyone has any other questions, please put them in the chat box and I will share them with Magda. From this study, in what you've presented, what insights do you have on other high opportunity industries besides healthcare?
Where do I start? Just about everything. Education is being huge right now. And more organizations of higher education or otherwise are recognizing that if education is not being quote unquote fixed, I don't know one country that's happy with their education system. So and this is how we train leaders of the future, right? And a workforce of the future. So education, and we start seeing education being embracing coaching earlier and earlier and earlier. There are several very significant global initiatives to include coaching in college level education. There is a consortium of 73 global universities led by Door Institute of Leadership Development at Rice University in Texas that are utilizing coaching as leadership development tool for their students. Phenomenally successful initiative for Rice, and now the leader of the Door Institute, General Colditz, is creating that coalition, and I think that we're going to start seeing something shaking around the globe with that. The other interesting sector, perhaps not as easy to penetrate, but it's public sector. Public sector has been open to coaching for a long time, and more countries are joining forces in utilizing coaching for the equivalent of national governments. Many created centers for excellence for there's primarily internal coaching initiatives, but as you can imagine, in just about every country, public sector is one of the largest employer there is. So that's certainly one of the opportunities, and there are enough case studies of good use of coaching in government that I think one may start making the case for that. And the last one I mentioned, simply because it's close to me, is the not-for-profit and social progress coaching. This is a new area, or newer, I should say. We started seeing coaching at the beginning just for individuals, then we went into private sector, public sector, and now not-for-profits and social sector are utilizing coaching a lot. And many people would say, well, not-for-profits, they don't have money. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is not-for-profit. They have money, I promise you. And also, there is something very important, because this is a growing sector of just about every economy. A growing sector with growing number of people who are committed. And if you look into studies about the next generation of workforce, millennials, they do care. They do want to be associated with something that is bigger than their own life, and many social progress organizations are supporting them in realizing that vision and mission. So I think that those not-for-profits, charities, foundations, that's a very fast-growing potential for expanding coaching services.
We have another question here. What is the best approach to operating alongside the untrained, uncredentialed coaching industry, seeing it does pose a somewhat significant negative impact to the coaching industry in the next 12 months?
This is interesting question, especially about the next 12 months. The question, I don't know, we've been doing surveys since 2005, 2006. And believe me, since then, untrained individuals operating in coaching market is always number one obstacle quoted. So I don't believe that it's going to be a significantly different or bigger problem in the next 12 months. But it continues to be an issue despite very significant efforts that ICF and other professional coaching bodies are undertaking to show the difference. So I think that this is really important that each and every one of you professional coaches speak to your clients about that. We as an organization, of course, will continue doing that, but you have access to those who purchase coaching directly. So be proud of your ICF membership, be proud of your ICF credential, be proud of whatever qualification you have as a professional coach. You know, I've been saying professional coach, professional coach, professional coach. I'm doing it on purpose because that sometimes may spark this little curiosity on the part of a person you're talking to, saying, well, what's professional coach vis-a-vis a coach? Now we have an opportunity and an opening to explain the difference between the trained individual. Many purchasers, I think, don't even realize that to be a member of ICF, one has to be a trained coach. We are the only global organization that demands that. So I would invite you to be proud of your accomplishments and to very explicitly speak to your clients about that and about their responsibility to make informed decisions while they are engaging somebody who is or is not a professional coach to support themselves or you know, in organizational setting, their teams and their organization.
We don't have any additional questions right now, Magda, so I don't know if you want a few final thoughts or...
So what do we have? One other.
Yep, we just got one in. Yep.
Do you see a rise in the use of coaching aggregators? Yes, we do. I would hesitate to say we see the huge increase, because we know we're just seeing some other starting being present in the marketplace, but they're still not in dozens. So it's quite too soon, I think, to say that there is a huge trend. But yes, it seems to be much more present than before. Before we could have maybe one or two of such groups. Now there are probably 5 or 6 operating, many of them in a global arena. And there is a huge conversation: is it good or is it bad? I think the choice ultimately is of the coach. Either you want to be a part of that offering, and the other very important conversation is, what is exactly the offering of these aggregators vis-a-vis what an individual or the organization can purchase in the open market. So clarity around that is certainly another big conversation.
Any other questions?
I know you're not shy, so come on. Well, if no other questions, thank you for being here with us. Again, as Sandy said, the report will be available on ICF website come Thursday. And there, if you don't know, there is over 1,000, I understand, events during the International Coaching Week. We are offering them in 26 languages. Isabel, you know statistics better than I.
27 now, so we've
27
actually,
now.
yeah,
Awesome,
one more language. And yes, we had about 1,200 events. And of course, as day goes, the number of events diminish, but you still have an opportunity to attend quite a lot of events until the end of this month, the biggest part of the events being this week. And just wanted to rebound on something, and I know it's maybe not the aggregator, Magda, but we also have some chapters who have done a survey together with us on this coaching digital platforms, and there will be an event next week on May 26th, where ICF France digital specialists will share the results of these, also the preview of this survey results with you. So it's on the ICF events platform. It's on May 26th. There's not so many events, so you'll be finding it very easily. Feel free to register if you want to know how coaches are experiencing these coaching platforms, and maybe it's a good moment as well to ask you questions related to that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So thanks again. Thank you. I see many familiar faces, so it's great to see everybody. Thank you again for being with us. And thank you so very much for being professional coaches and supporting our vision and mission. So yeah, thriving society through best coaches ever. Thanks again and have a good rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you all. Happy International Coaching Week.
Coaching week.
Bye bye.
Yes. Bye.